good morning, everyone. I'll be honest, I've been humbled by all the entrepreneurs who get up here on stage and present their ideas and share their concepts. And so I'm actually pretty excited to get a chance to do that here today with what we do here at Jet Set Studio. So I'm just curious, who here has ever organized an event? So, I mean, a majority, right? And, if there's a competition or if there's not, getting the word out about your event is one of the key elements to making this successful. And so that's the vision of Tournament Seeker. So Tournament Seeker solves a problem. And the problem is that people need to spread the word about their events. We bridge the gap between those folks who develop events and people looking to compete. It's a very simple concept, but the problem, like I said, exists. So there are 8,000 sports in the entire world. It's not a huge number, but imagine all the tournaments happening in that grand scope of tournaments. Hundreds of thousands of different events. So we focused on esports initially because Jet Set Studio was involved with esports. We developed video games around North America, and so esports was kind of our market. And so we built Tournament Seeker to bridge that gap between event organizers and people looking to compete. The last year and a half, 2 years, we've seen that Tournament Seeker has worked. We create an easy marketing opportunity for event organizers to quickly, under 3 minutes, list their event, get the critical information out there to the public, and in turn, generate some meaningful search engine visibility for people that may not necessarily have the resources to create a beautiful website or spend thousands of dollars on advertising. And so the opportunity of having a simple listing that looks good, that showcases all your different social media outlets, highlights the primary details of your event, the simplicity of Tournament Seeker is, I believe, what's most beautiful. And so we've seen this thing really work over the last, over the last couple years. And this thing is now ready to scale. So we've proven the concept of Tournament Seeker over the last 2 years. And we've seen the traction that it generates in the esports world. And so right now, the reason that we're talking today is that we've finished an API that will allow scalability. We'll talk about that here in a second. So just rewinding a little bit, since the joke is kind of what I do, Jet Set Studio was developed in 2007. So it was a startup before that word existed. We built a social network back when MySpace was cool. And Gathering of Gamers allowed us to connect to a worldwide network. And we realized that live events would bring people together into the virtual community. I see a friend in the crowd. I mean, these guys are friends, long time friends, through that social network that brought real people, real friends together. And so over the years, as we evolved our events, as Gathering of Gamers continued to churn, we realized that we needed a product that actually solved this problem. Our number one referring key phrase back in the day, and still is, was video game tournaments. Lots of people looking for these things. And so Tournament Seeker was the answer to that. We've had over 1,000 different video game events listed. That number is probably higher these days. About 100,000 visitors per year, which we'd like to see it higher, but when you search video game tournaments, and I welcome you to do it, check out where Tournament Seeker lives, and it's right on number 1. And so as a search engine gorilla, we see a lot of organic visitors, people coming our way looking for what we're actually showcasing. And so, answering that problem within the world of esports, has been actually a pretty neat opportunity. So, you know, what is esports? This is a new clicker, obviously, that I'm not practiced with, eh? So esports, anyone who's heard of esports? I'm just kind of more curious than anything else. So about half, right? Maybe 60%, 70%. So esports in its pure term is competitive video gaming. It's people who are getting together, competing against each other for, in some cases, a small amount, in some cases, a very large amount. Last year, there was an esports tournament that gave away $4 million. We're hosting an event this weekend in Canada. We're giving away $30,000. And so the money aspect of this is a very interesting element to esports. But another very interesting thing, as you can see here, is the actual viewership. So why isn't esports on TV? Esports doesn't really need TV. When you look at the numbers from having online viewership and the interactivity of that online viewership, I mean, they're beating numbers that are higher than the Rose Bowl. And so having that type of interactive viewership, being able to showcase sponsors and really being able to showcase an event online is what esports has come alive with. And so even in 2013, which is, geez, 2 years ago now, you know, $25 million was given away within the industry of esports, and around 72 million viewers, which, you know, my fault. I probably should have found some more current reports, because these numbers, my guess, are almost double these days. So real quickly, as you consider the opportunity in esports, right, Tournament Seeker is bridging the gap between event organizers and people looking to compete. But then you start building this thing again. You rebuild it on an API. And we don't need to go into the real technical aspects of an API, but it allows other people to access the data and build things with it. And so whether that's a column over on a website that highlights all the tournaments that are automatically fed through from Tournament Seeker, whether it's a mobile app that uses tournament listings within another, the overall experience, I mean, it's really an endless opportunity, and that to me is what's most exciting. The scalability of an API is what's so beautiful. We talk about it. I think it comes up almost every other week. And so really the market expansion idea is where I believe this idea now becomes ready to scale and ready to potentially take in funding. It's an interesting time. And that's one of my community questions here we'll see in a moment. But the market expansion is kind of realized in golftournamentseeker.com. We literally built an entire tournament seeker to, specifically for golf that no one's ever seen yet. So it's out there, it's live, but there's limited bandwidth. And so sharing that and merging into new markets, I find very interesting. And so, what if you had a tournament seeker for golf, right? And soccer, or basketball, or beer pong? I mean, the way we can scale this thing is what's so unique about the Tournament Seeker API platform and what we are pretty excited about. So I always believe that the moment the presenter shuts up is the moment the value begins, and so I'm eager to finish, and I thought I'd give you a quick highlight as far as some of the community questions that we're going to look at. But before we do, I thought I'd share one more little clip about what Jet Set Studio does as a company. So I believe in keeping a message concise, but because we have UGC Niagara this weekend, I had to at least share that side of Jet Set Studio. The event development, promotion, and management of video game events around North America is what's provided so much adventure in my life. And this weekend in Canada, Niagara Falls, we're headed up there to host the 4th annual event for these folks. This is a school district that believes in bringing people together in a really powerful and progressive way. Last year they had over 1 million viewers on the live stream with over 65,000 concurrent viewers. That's a large audience, right? About 1,000 attendees, and we give away $30,000. And so if you're interested in seeing kind of more of what we do and potentially seeing what esports looks like, it's pretty easy. It's one click away, Friday evening, all day Saturday, and all day Sunday. So the timing of this opportunity was, I suppose, slightly strategic, but check out UGC Niagara this weekend. In fact, I've got a Canadian swag item to give away to the first person who includes UGC Niagara in a tweet right now. And so this is direct from Canada, my souvenir before I even go. All right, so that is UGC Niagara, that is Jet Set Studio, and that is Tournament Seeker in a nutshell. Let's get to the best part. Brad.
How are you currently monetizing?
I knew you'd ask that. We just build for fun, right? No, but seriously, there are some unique profit channels. Think of how you generate more visibility on Google. The paid advertising method, you can upgrade your event listing. Right now in esports, event listings are innately free. However, you can upgrade those for a $25 listing, which is a featured level, and all the way up to a premium listing level, which is $50. That lasts the lifetime of the event, and in my opinion, it's a pretty low dollar amount. But in esports, with it being somewhat of an emerging market, there is something to be said about trying to generate traction, getting people in there and offering them something to build the community as well. That said, there is an interesting undercurrent of Tournament Seeker that happens in the fact that when people see who's behind Tournament Seeker, it quietly fuels our event development opportunities, which is one of the most profitable parts for our company. And so, although that wouldn't exist, say, in golf or soccer or other sports, for esports, that's something that generates kind of an interesting path to profit. There's another concept. I believe people would literally pay to be on a list where it notifies them of tournaments that they find interesting. Right now, it's unfortunately slightly retroactive. You have to come to the site, you have to find the event, you have to be a part of the website to find information. But the proactive aspect of it, being able to share it directly to them in their inbox, or people would literally pay if we mentioned them on Twitter when we had things that came online. And so there are some profit channels that I'd like to explore, but I'd definitely be open to additional profit channels. I think that's one of the interesting things that we'd like to do better at.
So I was one of the people who didn't really raise their hand. I didn't really know much about esports until I read about Amazon buying Twitch last year.
For $1 billion.
For 970 million or whatever it was. Have you guys thought at all about doing hosting of tournaments online as well, and not just connecting people?
Yeah, there's a lot of folks hosting online tournaments. There's another whole different industry of people who are wagering against each other in that online tournament environment. We're in Iowa, and so it's a little different than other states. And anytime you add money into the mix, it gets a little interesting. I believe that concept can work. However, I still think it's too early for that. Online tournaments is fine, but the reporting aspects requires quite a bit of bandwidth, because until it's built into the console, or into the computer, into the game, where that reporting can be no human error, you're always going to have people complaining about this, or the connection went bad there. There's just a lot of different variables that are hard to manage when everyone is everywhere. And so the online tournament is something that we've done as more of a qualifier for live events. But at this point, the online tournament stuff would require a pretty substantial addition to our product line. And like I said, at this point, I just feel like it's a little early for us to tackle that when we're able to do the live events that really separates us.
Sure.
I saw a hand over here. Sure.
Back to your streams for revenue. Do you think there's an opportunity for you to capture revenue from gaming manufacturers? Because you're doing headsets, you see products being used.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, when you consider the formula of creating a great video game event, there are a lot of costs involved. It's prohibitive in most cases, but the piece that people can do in order to make it come to life is actually partnering with, you know, the corporate sponsors. It's an interesting world in esports specifically. You have a lot of 15-year-old CEOs. There's a lot of young people who are building ideas, and that's amazing, right? But there's a lot of irresponsibility. It's still kind of a wild west, if you will. And so it takes a while to generate kind of the clout or the responsibility in order for corporate partners to latch on and trust that you're giving them the visibility or providing what you had promised. But that said, those folks, you're right, exist and are an important part of this situation. You know, we bring on, for UGC Niagara, just as an example, like Astro headsets, as an example within the gaming world. Those folks provide equipment, but also prizes, which everyone likes. You get IBM involved because it's to support schools and charity, which is neat. You get Microsoft involved. Some of these big folks that are able to latch on, help support it financially, but also get a really unique message. I believe that we can make almost anyone look cool, right? And the loyalty aspect within esports is really unique. If people love you, they love you. But they hate advertising. This is a demographic that's highlighted by perhaps, you know, your 18 to 32-year-old male. Lots of females, lots of people outside of those groups. But this is the group that everyone wants to hit, and no one, you know, really does it like you can in esports. They hate you until they love you in this world. And that's one kind of neat opportunity we have to showcase some of our corporate partners, whether it's on Tournament Seeker, whether it's at live events. That's definitely something that we try to do on an ongoing basis. Brian?
Two parts. How many of you are there across the country doing what you're doing? Is it a dozen? Is it 100?
So what's our competition look like? Or?
Yeah, or even people don't even consider competition because they do staggered events. But how many, I'm just curious, how many 1 million cups especially would happen today where the people are doing what you're doing? Just curious.
My guess on this level, probably around 0. However, there are definitely people in this world that are doing what we do. There are very few. Search video game event management. It's a term you've probably never even thought of saying, you know. But there are a few people. There are also large organizations that are managing this on what I would call perhaps like the highest end, right? MLG is a great example. Major League Gaming is a company that, think of it like poker. Like this is the thing that's the next poker, right? But MLG has taken in, I know it's over 20 million in funding. They've taken it to a really cool level. Their events are just magic. And there are a handful of these large scale, you know, international esports folks that are building events that are filling the Staples Center, filling large arenas to watch esports. Those are the folks who are giving away the $1 million. In fact, 2 weeks ago, the Call of Duty Championship in California, MLG literally gave $1 million away to, you know, teams of 4 for Call of Duty. The stream numbers, like I said, were just amazing. And then you kind of take, so imagine them as like the Chicago Cubs. This is the top, and I would call what we do more regional, perhaps. You know, maybe it's an Iowa Cubs element where there's still a market to be, you know, served. I think it's that regional aspect of our events, the personalism of what we do with what we do, and to me that's interesting and a nice niche within the larger market. I would say there's one person that comes to mind, you know, but there's probably 5, 10. I mean, it's a very, very interesting market because at the core, we're talking Tournament Seeker, but at that event management stuff, imagine the event management challenges that go into any event. It's logistical, it's bringing people together, it's all that goes on with even what we're doing here today. And then you add this head of beer, right, of technology that's about as big as the event. In Canada, we have about 100 Xbox Ones, you know, about 150 monitors. We use the live stream, the projections, the you know, all the social media aspects. There's a lot going on along with just the pure event management stuff.
So here's the kind of the follow-on question. So while you're unique to some degree in this space, while you're managing the event and the technology, do you have anybody, or should you have anybody that just wanders around and sees what the kids are doing because of this? You're reaching the demographic that everybody else wants to reach. Like, what are they doing in their downtime? What are they looking at? What games are they playing when they're not doing Call of Duty, which is mainstream? So, you know, it's a revenue opportunity, I would think. You have insight into what that demographic is doing
Yeah, I call it the gamer demographic, and I use that word with prospects almost every time, but what you're talking about is a little bit more details on that demographic versus like the general things that we all kind of know.
Right. They're on the bleeding edge, and you can capture that,
Mhm.
share that with the people that would be
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. Thanks, Brian. Tej.
You have an opportunity to sell future replay video rights of a tournament that happened. So whatever you recorded, now you're selling as best of or top 10 or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ad-supported or subscription based.
Absolutely, yep. That's in our contracts. We own the content. And so the replay aspect of this is not as big, but it's definitely substantial and long-term. And so those videos can sit on YouTube all day long and just generate viewers and flow ads through there, and there is a small revenue opportunity for highlighted content as well. Laura.
When you are looking at your question about sell versus build, and I know a lot of times that's sometimes the whole reason why someone starts is just that they.
If you don't have an exit strategy before
Right.
you start, you're probably going to fail, right?
So do you think that when you talk about that regionalized focus, what level do you think it would require you to take it to another level to be able to sell it? And if you weren't going to sell it, is that still your goal generally?
Yeah, I don't know if Jared's here, but we had an interesting conversation about the fact that, I mean, in today's world, people can probably build something if they really wanted it. And so that's the challenge. I mean, yes, we've built this thing to a unique level. We've connected it with the community, and so it's more vibrant than anything that would just be starting out. But to just sell it and kind of hand it off to the next person, I think that's idealistic, right? But I don't know if that would work. I think that, Draper and I have had good conversations about the fact is you need someone to continue building it and adding bandwidth to expand on that scalability element. So I'd like to say that this thing, I believe someone could buy this and take it to the moon. But does it require me? Does it require Jet Set Studio? Does it require that experience or that community connectivity to really take it to that level? Those are the questions I'm trying to answer.
Some things come to mind in terms of being able to do that. I don't know, have you been involved with like South by Southwest Interactive and trying to put on anything on a scale that would get that level of visibility for it? And would that take maybe some injection of marketing dollars
Sure.
to be able to, get involved with Blizzard or bring in a Japanese player that has do something huge like that?
Sure.
Have you thought about?
Yeah, some of the early days of how Jet Set really came to life was in that corporate world of offering smaller events, but providing a magnet for people. And so we'd go to convention booths, we'd go to VIP parties, we'd go to different things like that. Gaming is a magnet. And so if we put a little gaming element together, we can bring people your way and then they can achieve objectives. That was back when Guitar Hero was popular. And a lot of people liked that idea of interactivity with Guitar Hero, but didn't want to deal with it. So we offered a plug and play, and that really, we were working with large companies doing, real boutique type things. We still do that. That's one side of the spectrum. I think education is kind of in the middle. We do a lot of events at colleges. And then the full scale, like where people are coming to compete, is another level.
We talked about the college aspect, and I think that's really hot too, as far as getting the incoming freshmen and doing things that are exciting on campuses. I think that's great. I was just thinking at the level of visibility at South by, for example, some of those corporate sponsors that you said are nervous about it.
Sure.
It just lends so much credibility to them jumping on board, and
Yeah.
you see those kind of sponsorships that are built around that, and so I was just curious.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks. Zach.
Yeah, so I know that UC Niagara, right? They hire you to go put this event on,
Correct.
right? Have you thought about creating your own events? Where no one's paying you to put them on, but you...
Well, that doesn't sound very fun.
Well, no, but where you get the advertising money, right? You get the advertising money, you get the stream money, you get the user fees, where you can sort of build it, however you want to.
Yeah.
Sort of expand on, instead of waiting for somebody to hire you.
You know, that's interesting that you would bring that up. We did that. The Iowa Pro Gaming Challenge is an example of the full-scale esports type of an event that we were the provider and the client, like you're talking about, doing both sides. It's our event, and you know, we're building it for the community ourselves. What I found was that, I mean, maybe it's the location, maybe it's people not understanding the opportunity that the esports channels provide. But it was challenging because as the provider and the client, you were taking in all the risk, and the amount of effort that went into building that specific event was way more than the revenue that it was generating. And so after 3 years, and I mean, that event is magic. It'll always have a neat spot in my heart because we just brought so many cool, we had 15 different states represented by players who came to Des Moines, who brought this thing to life. We had, the last year we did it, we had 550,000 viewers on Twitch. I mean, we gave away about 10 or 15. It was just a really neat event, high quality, high production value, but the resources required and also bandwidth to build the supporting sponsors to make it financially, valid was the biggest challenge.
Did it get easier over the years? Or
it got easier, but it also got bigger. And so as it continued to grow, there was new challenges, and some of the things that were easy, you know, became a little more difficult. And so it was easier because you had done it before, but it was actually less profitable because we just kept adding to the production. We just kept adding to, you know, how many gaming stations we have, how many commentators we're bringing in from around the country, how many people were, you know, and so it was an interesting experience. I pushed pause on that. I do believe that concept could come back to life, whether it's me or whether it's someone else. Brad?
Can you help us understand your customers? So if you take an event like UGC Niagara, like what's their overall budget? How much do they spend on marketing? What do they value? How do they make money?
Yeah, so when people come to me and ask for a large-scale esports event, in general, I get them thinking on a $25,000 to $40,000 budget. I know that's a super broad ballpark, right? But those are the type of numbers that you have to have in order to bring what we need to bring to the table. I do believe that you can do these, you know, nice medium-sized events, really interactive, perhaps in a university. You know, those type of events, I feel like you can do those for maybe, you know, 12 to 15 to 20, right? Maybe down to 10. And then you get some of the small stuff where we're just going into a VIP party, running a Pac-Man event to bring back some nostalgia. You know, then it can probably be 5 to 10. So those are kind of the three big pillars along our spectrum. But the large-scale esports stuff, man, it's just so much work. I mean, the amount of work that goes into this quantifies the money, but I think our MVP perhaps could be working with schools, working within universities, because there's no promotion. They already have the captive audience. There's no alcohol, so they look progressive while bringing people together, and it's fun. You know, and so we can have a nice event for less of an investment, and they also have the venue. And so if anyone has allies around the country within universities, I think that might be one specific ask that you could think about this week and maybe make an introduction. We do it at Central Michigan University, Columbia College. I mean, the UGC Niagara is actually a school district client, so we work in that space quite a bit. And I'd love some introductions on that front specifically. Did that kind of answer it?
Well, marketing budget, how much do they spend on marketing for like a large tournament?
It's interestingly close to zero. Twitter, it lights up. Search UGC Niagara. You know, when you make a tweet and there's 265 retweets, word gets around. It's also nice when it's a 4th annual event. You've generated your traction, you've snowballed that concept, and people are waiting for news. For a first event though, man, it's all online. And so, you know, maybe some small paid advertisement here or there, but it's oddly close to zero.
And how do the tournaments make money? Is that through entry fees or advertisements or sponsorships?
So my first entrepreneurial experience was a 3v3 soccer tournament, the Iowa Pro Gaming Challenge. I miss the days of being able to give away small trophies and kids being happy and everyone going home. This community requires big dollars because A, they're needing to cover costs, but it's just the way the industry has been built. And so in order to get any sort of, you know, traction or attendees, I mean, you're needing to put out $5-10 grand at least to get people to travel to your event. And so that money is covered by sponsors, as we spoke about a little bit. The registration fee, which, to give you a sense, like a Call of Duty team this weekend paid $200, $50 a person, which is low. You can charge around $300 if you want it. That money really just gets cycled back directly into that prize pool. And so it's a very interesting formula and challenging, I think, to say the least, to figure out where all the money comes from and how you end up breaking even and then eventually being profitable. I think at its core right now, because of where esports is, you have to come into this wanting to bring people together and like wanting to build community with a goal of also potentially making money as the future kind of progresses. Morgan.
So with the small tournaments that people pay into a large pot, have you looked into potentially like taking a cut of the overall winnings and actually holding onto that money yourself as opposed to a third party? Because I don't know if you've ever heard of the website leaguesafe.com, but me and my buddies have been using it for years for fantasy football. And basically because what we used to do is
just takes juice.
We'd pay cash and we'd trust our one buddy to not lose it.
Sure.
But so what you can pay with card, they store it in their database. Whoever's the commissioner of the league is the commissioner of this account, and then at the end of the league they just pay it out and they take a cut of the winnings.
It's interesting when you start taking those cuts, the community gets loud. Making that, you know, the most transparent events are the most successful events, and I think taking money in that way is something that could potentially be easy, but it's not worth kind of the black eye you might receive from the community. I would rather develop, you know, financial resources in other ways, but let's talk more in depth about that. I'd like to kind of pick your brain a little more. Dustin, sure.
All right, so a lot of questions on your event, Jet Set Studios, but switching gears to Tournament Seeker. Talk about your API and what value that brings to the people you want to integrate that, and why somebody would want to do that.
Yeah, so I think Tournament Seeker becomes like a super monster when we build a crawler to automatically, like a search engine, find video game tournaments, list them automatically, and you know, it might get a little spammy, but notify that event organizer. If we can create a habit where when you're building an event, you know that listing Tournament Seeker is like creating a Twitter handle. If that happens, you know, Tournament Seeker becomes more and more valuable for the community looking to compete. Without event listings, we've talked about this many times, you know, it just loses some of the value for that community looking to compete. And so that's the biggest marketing push, is making sure event organizers know about Tournament Seeker and right now can manually you know, include their events. It helps when you're searching video game tournaments, what's Tournament Seeker, you understand that listings are free. We're able to do that fairly effectively, but one of my challenges that I shared in one of my questions was, you know, as you expand into new markets, I've got some unique connectivity in esports, but I don't have that unique connectivity in basketball or in soccer. You know, we built golf because I like to golf, not because necessarily it was the most strategic choice. It's just an example of what we can build out. And so, I mean, continue your question though.
I think to follow on that is each one of those will have different competition that you have to look at.
Right.
So you're very intense into the gaming market. So, you know, staying focused there right off the bat, having the API available to find partners, maybe who already have a ton of golf tournaments listed, that you can pull thousands of tournaments from them to fill your database, and then reciprocate somehow to help them fill those tournaments.
Sure.
Would be the way to go versus competing with them that are established golf tournament, you know.
Right. We've had some interesting conversations over the years about how to actually deploy these new markets. That's my big elephant in the room, right? And so one idea that I found interesting was almost like a franchise model. You know, Dustin, you're big into golf, and so you're going to actually, you know, take the rights of Golf Tournament Seeker and treat it as your own and build it within the community that you work in. Zach, you're big into golf or soccer, so you do soccer, and everyone has their. But what I think might happen is you put a lot of eggs into each person's basket, and maybe you don't actually do what you're going to do, and now we're kind of stuck with soccer being a little stagnant. And so I don't think that's the exact right approach, but I do believe finding community leaders and also, you know, companies within each market would be super important as far as scaling into those new markets. Chris, I saw your hand up earlier. That's a good segue to what we've talked about as far as focusing in on esports versus the market expansion stuff. Not
I
knowing.
was curious. I mean, you see, like in the college environment, obviously, especially small privates, they're looking at adding. They're adding sports massively. A lot of small privates are actually adding e-games as sports with varsity access.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems there should be opportunities there. I mean, how would you see your ideal role in an environment where you're an actual leader in something where you could have, they're going to need, NCAA is not taking e-games. I mean, who does
Yet.
that role?
I believe that will happen. I mean, I believe that that's a hole in this industry where, esports, right now there's a lot of clubs. I mean, at Iowa State as an example, I know that they have a club, they have about 100 people that come together for a fun LAN. But those guys would love to play against other clubs. And as that club mentality continues to progress towards professional, I believe that some of the progressive schools will actually start bringing in these athletes to compete at an esports level.
Well, why aren't you the right person to connect them?
I am.
So what are you guys doing?
Bandwidth, bud. I mean, that's one of my biggest problems. Alongside of my work at Jet Set and building Tournament Seeker and organizing this and doing Des Moines startup drinks, and I also have a full-time job at Drake Holmes. So I always coach people on not diluting yourself towards mediocrity, and I'm just like teetering towards that, right? But to add a big objective like that, one of the things that's interesting to me is that Jet Set Studio has never been progressively reaching out. Clients come to us, that's the only way we do. And so to have someone who's actually reaching out and perhaps going after a conversation, to me would change the game. And I would love to take that to the next level. But I was talking with Don and Kyle and Matt yesterday. I like where Jet Set Studio sits in my life. And I've talked to you about this as well. Like, it creates an adventure that pays. So I get to have a hobby that pays. And if I was to take it 100%, take it $1 million and really push it forward, would I love that? I think that I would, but I really like where I'm at now. And so it's kind of a heart thing where it's hard to say that that's my ultimate goal, is to take this thing 100%. Sure.
So you said that you do mainly just organic search traffic, right? At this point. Have you guys thought about other ways to generate traffic, like maybe partnering with a YouTuber who does gaming and then building out another channel about like an event organization for esports, to kind of like position yourselves as the leader in everyone's mind in that area?
Just rephrase your question once.
I guess, what other ways are you like thinking about bringing in more traffic to Tournament Seeker site other than just organic search?
Sure. I think we've set ourselves up for the amount of traffic, and as esports grows, so will that traffic. I think there are always more things that you can do. Money would be an easy way of injecting a little bit more visibility. But at a organic, free type approach, I think we've done a pretty good job as far as the search engine results, Twitter activity, Facebook activity, and across the social media landscape. And so my hope is that we've done a good job, but I know that more hands on deck and more money would always help allow us to plug into events as sponsors and generate visibility and provide more resources. I mean, you think of Tournament Seeker as this bridge between people looking to compete as purely promotional, right? We're getting the word out, we're advertising this event, but there is a whole underlayer of different resources that we could provide event organizers. Online registration, bracket management, payments. I mean, there's a collection of resources we could provide within Tournament Seeker that would expand what it's able to do, and I think take us to the next level as well. But it was a strategic decision to stay focused in on purely promotional getting the word out, so that we weren't going to dilute ourselves with the limited resources that we had during that last build. Zach.
So it seems like one of the main problems you're having is you're one person, you can't clone yourself. So have you thought about even hiring people, but since your market is like this 18 to 32 male,
Sure.
right, that go to your tournaments, can you sort of recruit interns or whatever,
Yeah.
even do it on a purely commission basis. So
Sure.
they get a cut of whatever event they put on.
Sure.
And you provide, sort of some expertise around that, and some mentorship, but really you sort of give it to them, and then you take a majority of it, and you give them a cut, some ownership, and sort of build it that way organically wherever they live.
Right. That's a good little chance to talk about like team development and staffing and whatnot. We have a position called an event scout. And these folks are based off commission because we don't have the crawler, as I mentioned earlier. They're going out, finding events, listing them, filling out a spreadsheet, and that's considered, a sale. And so by doing that, I can follow up with those folks and a little more manually, but still a little more personally follow up and say, hey, check out this listing. We'd love to, hear what you think, and maybe in the future do this more often. And so that's kind of the tournament seeker staffing that I've been able to achieve. On the Jet Set side, it's unique because we've created this network around the country where when we go to Canada, I work with all my friends in Canada to staff the event. When we host an event in Michigan, I partner up with my friends in Michigan, and that stuff exists in all the different places that we go. And so although it doesn't require a large team, having the nucleus of people who know what they're doing can lead a larger group. So, that's how we've gone about staffing to date. But hiring is something that I'd love to do. It just comes down to those financial bandwidth element, and how do you spend the money? Brad.
So I'm drawing some parallels with another company that I'm involved in, and at $25 to $50 per each client, it probably doesn't make sense to hire a sales team. But one thing that we found out was, we ended up putting something on the website that we thought was higher than anybody would be willing to pay, and it turns out that people were, willing to pay. So come up with something that you can put up for $1,000 and see, if you can identify who those high value people are, and then figure out, what would they pay $5,000 or $10,000, for an event. So I have one idea for what that might be. You're collecting all this data around who's interested in these tournaments, right? If you're having 500,000 viewers on your stream this weekend, if you put a tracking pixel in there and are able to retarget at those people, like those are the target demographic of all these tournaments. So you'd be able to advertise back at them on Facebook and subset those to, like, I'm running a tournament in Des Moines. I'm able to target the 3,000 people from Des Moines who are part of that 500,000 people, and then you offer that marketing service to a Major League Gaming tournament of, wherever you want to run a tournament, we have thousands of people just, that we can access that you don't know who they are. And there's going to be people who are willing to pay for that. So I'd figure out how you can move up that value chain.
I love this event. That's a great idea, and we should talk more immediately after this. I love this stuff, man. Oh, and we're streaming on Periscope. Yeah. I'm over Meerkat already. We're on a Periscope. Yeah, Tim.
Have you thought about creating your own esports brand? As far as setting up some of your own rules and say, you can sponsor a tournament, we follow these rules and guidelines for ranking. The people that participate would be ranked, and you can compete against people all over the world.
Sure. I think that would be challenging because you're going up against Goliath. I mean, MLG has their set of rules. A lot of the games that are considered competitive already have those rules in place. They're working directly with the game developers. I mean, to me, that's probably outside of the realm of our possibility. I think more importantly is actually aligning with those rules in order to present a very fair and consistent experience at not only our event, but when you go to the next event, it'll be the same, and next event will be the same. Just kind of aligning the stars with the community of esports and different events that are being hosted as well. Sure.
So Twitch has been mentioned a couple times throughout today, and basically they've done a lot of really good things in the video game realm. So do you see any sort of strategic partnership with them, basically being able to have them or work with them and basically saying, if you're watching this tournament online or if you're watching this, if you want to find more events that are similar to this, check out tournamentseeker.com and you can find any events within your local area or things like that.
Right.
So
I think we initially had those conversations. Bandwidth started to starve those conversations. And that would be a huge partner. We partner with them on the stream front. if you go on the homepage of Twitch, you average around 100,000 viewers per hour, and that's probably more these days. And so when we partner with Twitch, they throw us on the homepage. That's how we go big. And so we do have a pretty unique connection there. You're making money on ads when those play. And so partnering with Twitch, in this case, it's interesting, folks. The political aspect of content within esports is something that's real. Like, I fought this for UGC Niagara. We're literally using MLG and their streaming platform, MLG.TV, for the Call of Duty aspect, because they purchased the rights from Activision so that you could only project, on a larger esports scale, but you could only project esports on their platform. And so we literally could legally not go onto Twitch and showcase UGC Niagara on Twitch, where our Super Smash Brothers event, we work with Twitch. So we're working with 2 platforms, each one with one of the different divisions in a 3-division event here this weekend. And that's been some of the political aspects that I've been introduced to this time around that unfortunately is a little anti-collaborative, but there's bigger and bigger money in this game, and I suppose that's the natural effect.
I don't know what you're streaming when you talk about all the views that you have. Are you advertising?
I'm just on there like talking all day. No, I'm not actually. I'm Giveaway Ben. I don't do any of the commentary anymore. I come on there and give away prizes, which is a fun aspect because of the interactivity of the chat. Like, I can tell people that this is the tweet that you need to tweet, or this is the thing that you need to retweet in order to enter this contest. And I mean, I remember we did this for Astro, and there were 2,000 tweets in like 5 minutes. And that type of projection is really, really cool. And we're giving away like toys, let alone like a large, type of giveaway. And so the interactivity is something that's unique. Commentators are kind of like Madden is for NFL. We bring in the community leaders that have clout, that know what they're talking about. And what you're seeing on the stream is actually gameplay within a main stage, and being able to flip through who's got the most action at that time with commentary talking about strategy and bringing up the hype. Then you end up having the commercials in there that are paying and showcasing the sponsors as well. And you have the wrap, the design of that stream that highlights our sponsors subtly as well. And so yeah, this weekend I definitely encourage you guys, just take one click and see what UGC Niagara looks like. I know we're starting to get towards the end here, so.
All those viewers for each of those events, do you get access to email addresses for them or anything to be able to market future events to them?
Unfortunately, no. I mean, as a partner, you're taking in the financial aspect of if you have X viewers, you get paid that much anytime you run an ad in front of that group, right? But as far as user data for those viewers, unfortunately, that's not something that we have access to. The data access for us would be more or less the folks that are in attendance, right, during that entire registration process. I think there's about time for one more question if we have any more. But before that question, thanks again, everyone. I've attended this. This is actually the 3rd year. This is the 3rd anniversary of 1 Million Cups. Today, they're celebrating it down in Kansas City. And we came online about 2.5 years ago. And I mean, if this is your first time, the interactivity and the energy that this event provides is infectious. I say it every week when I MC, but having a chance to be on the stage and getting some of the feedback from such an insightful community is something that means a lot. So any other final questions? That actually was a good ending. All right, thanks everyone.